I'm 29 years old and I'm a streamer. Yes, I make a living playing video games and creating content on the internet. No, it's not easy money, nor is it a hobby. I work more hours than I can count editing, recording, interacting with my community. Took me years to get to this point, but I'm doing well. I've also been paying for my parents' house, their food, their bills, my sister's college for 7 years. I never thought it was anything out of the ordinary. I had always been told that family comes first. A single click and everything changed. That night I was streaming like always. Everything normal, laughter in the chat, an intense game, people donating. Then among the messages, one caught my attention. After seeing this, tell me if you still want to keep helping them. Came with a link. I thought it would be a meme or some nonsense, but I clicked anyway. It was a video. The image took a couple of seconds to load. As soon as I recognized the room, I felt like a bucket of cold water had been dumped on me. It was my house, well, their house, the one I paid for. My mother was on the couch with a glass of wine in her hand. Next to her, my dad was laughing. My sister was sitting at the table with her cell phone, but clearly part of the conversation. I don't understand how people give her money for playing little games, my mom said with a mocking laugh. It's absurd, added my dad. We actually work, but she thinks she's a businesswoman because some fools send her money. Mom, imagine the day she realizes we're just using her as an ATM. My sister finished. The three of them laughed as if it were the best joke in the world. I didn't react immediately. I stared at the screen with my heart pounding in my ears. It was surreal, as if I were watching complete strangers. But they weren't strangers. They were the people I had worked like a donkey for years. I closed the tab without saying anything and continued with the stream. I answered comments, played another game, smiled as if nothing had happened. But something inside me was already broken. I was never part of the family. I was just their wallet. When I closed the stream, I sat at my desk staring at nothing, and that's when it all started to click. The family dinners where I paid the bill without anyone asking me. My sister's calls that always ended with, "Hey, can you help me with something?" Books, courses, trips, there was always something. My mom organizing gatherings saying it was to share, but in the end it was always me who covered everything. My dad with his classic, "And when are you going to get a real job?" As if paying all their damn bills with my work wasn't enough. And me blind because I always thought that helping them was the right thing to do, that's what family was for. That night I understood the truth. They didn't see me as a daughter. They didn't see me as a sister. I was just their guaranteed monthly income. Cancelled everything. I took my cell phone and opened the bank app. Mortgage payment. Cancelled. My sister's college payment. Cancelled. Monthly transfers. Cancelled. I logged out, turned off the computer, took a deep breath. For the first time in years I felt free. They didn't call me the next day or the day after that, not for the entire first week. It took them almost 2 weeks to realize that money was no longer falling into their accounts. And then the calls and messages started pouring in. But it was too late. The first to call was my mother. I didn't answer. Then my sister, then my father, then my mother again. I let them ring. I turned off my cell phone. But the next day when I turned it on, I had more than 50 WhatsApp messages. I opened the first one from my mom. "Honey, there was a problem with the bank. It seems the house payment didn't arrive. Could you check it out?" "Ha, a problem with the bank." The next one was from my sister. "Hey, I think you forgot to pay for college this month. Can you fix it? I have exams and I can't lose the semester." There was no anger in her words, no concern, just the certainty that I was going to fix her life, as always. I kept scrolling down the messages, and there was the first one from my dad. "We need to talk. Call me." After that, another one a few hours later. "I can't believe what you're doing after all we've done for you. It's a shame you're leaving us like this." And then one more, already at dawn. "Don't be selfish. We're your family." The word selfish made me grit my teeth because they had said it to me before. Because all my life, every time I tried to put myself first, my mother found a way to make me feel guilty. When I was 15 and saved up to buy a cell phone with my own money, my mom convinced me to give it to my sister because she needed it more for school. When I complained to my parents 2 years ago because I wanted to save to buy an apartment, my mom was offended. "What's 2,000 to you? We raised you. The least you can do is give us something back." When I told them I wanted to move to another country because there were more opportunities there, my sister cried. You can't leave us alone. That would be very selfish of you. Selfish. Every time I tried to live my life, they made me feel like I was betraying them. Hey, Mom is super. She hasn't slept in 2 days. She's worried. She says she doesn't understand what's going on. Could you call her? She didn't mention the money, didn't mention the transfers. Nice try. I decided it was time to respond. Not with words. I opened WhatsApp, went into the family group and wrote, "It wasn't a bank error. I'm simply not going to pay anything else. For 7 years you treated me like an ATM, and when you thought I wasn't listening, you laughed at me. I hope you remember that the next time you call me selfish." Silence. I saw the 3 little dots typing appear and disappear several times. Then my mom. "Honey, it's not what you think. That was just a joke. A joke that lasted for years." Before I could answer, my dad wrote, "What a shame. I can't believe you're doing this over a simple misunderstanding. We're your family." And then my sister. "You're being dramatic. Nobody said anything with bad intentions. But fine, if you want to be so dramatic, do what you want." There it was. "I'm sorry. No, we shouldn't have talked about you like that." Just manipulation, minimizing what they did, making me feel guilty. I turned off my cell phone again. But they weren't done yet, because the next day they showed up at my door. I woke up to banging on the door. At first I thought it was a neighbor, but when I looked through the peephole I felt a chill. My mom. My sister. My mother looked furious, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently. My sister had red eyes, as if she had been crying. I didn't want to face them. I didn't even want to open the door. But I knew that if I didn't, they would start yelling, making a scene. I wasn't going to give them that show in front of my neighbors. So I took a deep breath, unlocked the lock and opened the door. "Finally showing your face," my mother said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. My sister followed, closing the door behind her. I stood there with my arms crossed. "What do you want? What do we want?" My mom let out a sarcastic laugh. "We want to know when you became so ungrateful. How can you do this to us? I didn't do anything to you. I just stopped paying you everything." My sister stepped forward. "Do you have any idea what you've caused? Mom has been sick with nerves. Dad doesn't even want to talk about it. And me." Her voice cracked. "They're going to kick me out of college if we don't pay the tuition this month. Is that what you want? To ruin my life? Your life is not my responsibility." Her expression changed in a second. She wiped away her tears and looked at me with contempt. "Wow, you really don't have a heart. What I don't have is patience to keep letting you use me." My mother stepped forward, lowering her voice. "Listen to me. You are our daughter. You owe us this. We raised you, fed you, gave you a roof." And there it was, the invisible debt that never ended. I had a flash of memory. I was 17 and had just received an offer to study in another country. The scholarship covered almost everything, but I needed some extra money for the initial expenses. When I asked my mom for help, she looked at me with disbelief. "You're asking us for money after all we've done for you." My dad just laughed. "If you want to study abroad, pay for it yourself. We're not your bank." They weren't my bank, but I had been theirs. I shook my head, coming back to the present. "I'm tired, Mom. I'm not going to keep paying for your life. No more." She looked at me as if I had spit in her face. "If you close the door on your family, you're going to be alone. Is that what you want?" I'd rather be alone than keep being surrounded by people who only want me for my money. My sister snorted and took my mom by the arm. "Let's go. There's no point in talking anymore. Someday she'll regret it." My mom gave me one last look of hatred before leaving. When the door closed behind them, I felt something new. Not sadness, not guilt. Relief. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel surreal. But the war wasn't over, because when I thought they couldn't do anything worse, I received a message from my dad. And that's when I knew they were willing to sink to the bottom. After my mom and sister left, I thought I would finally have peace. I was wrong. The next morning, while having breakfast, my cell phone vibrated with a message from my dad. "We've made a decision. If you don't reconsider and help your family, you're no longer part of it. Don't look for us again." I stared at the screen. I don't know how long I spent without moving, with the spoon halfway between the bowl and my mouth. That was it. Just like that, they discarded me. I reread the message. My own family was disinheriting me, cutting me off as if I were a stranger. And all for money. It should have hurt. I should have felt broken, betrayed, devastated. But it wasn't like that because deep down I had seen it coming. At 19, when I said I didn't want to study something serious like law or medicine, my father looked at me with disdain. If you don't study something that gives you stability, don't count on our support. At 23, when I turned down a good job at a friend of the family's company, because I wanted to dedicate myself to streaming, my mom told me I was destroying my future. We're not going to be here forever. If you continue down that path, one day you're going to be alone. Always the same threat, always the same emotional blackmail. But this time it didn't affect me because now I saw it clearly. They never saw me as a person with dreams, fears, and feelings, only as a resource, only a guaranteed monthly income. So I did the only logical thing at that moment. I blocked my father. And for the first time in my life I felt truly free. The following days were strange. After years of receiving constant calls, messages asking for money, favors, small help, suddenly everything was silent. At first it was weird, as if something was missing, as if the world was too quiet. But it wasn't sadness, it was relief. I felt light, as if I had dropped a backpack full of stones. And then I understood. I had spent my whole life believing that my family's love was something I had to earn, that I had to strive to keep them happy, to be useful, to make myself indispensable because if I didn't they would abandon me. And they did. They did it without hesitation, without a single moment of reflection. That confirmed what I always knew deep down. I was never part of the family. I was just the financial support. One afternoon while taking out the trash, my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Rosa, greeted me from her garden. She was an older woman with white hair pulled back in a bun and a kind face. I haven't seen your family around here for days. Is everything okay? I don't know why, but instead of giving a quick answer and continuing on my way, I stopped and talked. I told her everything, from the years I spent paying everything for them to the moment I discovered what they were saying about me in the last conversation with my father. She listened without interrupting, nodding from time to time. When I finished, she sighed and looked at me sadly. I understand you more than you think. You went through something similar? She nodded. When I was young, I worked like crazy to help my family. I gave them everything down to the last penny. My siblings, my parents, everyone lived thanks to me. And when I ran out of anything, when I needed help, they turned their backs on me as if I had never existed. I remained silent. She took my hand gently. Listen to me, dear. It doesn't matter how much blood you share with them. If they don't respect you, they are not your family. You have the right to put yourself first. You have the right to say no. You have the right to be happy without carrying the expectations of others. Her words pierced me because in 29 years no one had told me that. No one had given me permission to live my life without guilt. I felt a lump in my throat. How do you get over something like that? I asked softly. You don't get over it, you learn. One day you wake up and realize that you don't miss them. And when that happens, you'll know you're free. I said goodbye to her and went back to my apartment with her voice echoing in my head. And for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. Months passed. My life went on. My channel grew more than ever. I moved to a better place. I made real friends. And one day, a year after everything, my cell phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was spam. But when I opened the conversation, I felt a chill. I know you blocked me, but please just watch this. It was my father. He had used another number. For a moment I hesitated. I could have ignored it, deleted it without further ado. But there was an attachment, a video. I took a deep breath and opened it. There he was, sitting in his favorite armchair, his face more aged than I remembered. He took a deep breath before speaking. I don't know if you're going to see this, but I needed to tell you something. There was a pause. You were right. We didn't value you. We didn't treat you as we should have. And when you left, we thought you would give up and come back begging. But you didn't. You moved on. And now we realize we can't go on without you. He rubbed his face with his hands as if he were ashamed. Your mother and your sister don't want to accept it, but I do. I messed up. I messed up. I don't want this to end like this. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. The video ended and all I felt was nothing. Not relief, not sadness, just nothing. Because it didn't matter anymore. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his validation. I finally understood that there was nothing broken in me. I had just learned to see myself as I really was, someone who deserved respect. And that was enough. I looked at the cell phone for a moment. The video of my father was still there, waiting for me to do something with it. Responding made no sense. Forgiving him didn't matter anymore. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. Just emptiness. I blocked him again, this time without hesitation. I took a deep breath and put the cell phone aside. There was no turning back. A year later, if someone had told me 2 years ago that I would be here, I wouldn't have believed it. Sitting on the terrace of my new apartment, in a completely different city, with a completely new life. Gone were the calls demanding money. Gone were the dinners where I always ended up paying. Gone were the passive-aggressive comments about my work. I was no longer the selfish daughter. I was no longer the ATM. I was free. My channel had grown more than ever. I had followers who truly appreciated me, real friends, a home that really felt like home. And most importantly, I had myself for the first time without the guilt, without the feeling that I had to prove something to someone. I thought I would never hear from them again, but I was wrong. A few months ago, I received a message from an unknown number. I don't know if you care, but Mom is sick. They say it's serious. It was my sister. For the first time in a long time, I hesitated. What was I supposed to do? If I went, I knew there would be reproaches, manipulation, attempts to make me feel guilty. If I didn't go, could I really live with it? After thinking about it a lot, I decided to write to her. What does she have? The answer came quickly. Cancer. They say it's too late to do much, but maybe you can come. I don't know, maybe she wants to see you. I read those words over and over again. And against all odds I went. When I arrived at the hospital, my sister was at the door. She looked tired, with deep dark circles under her eyes. I thought you wouldn't come, she said, without emotion in her voice. Me neither. We entered in silence. My mother was in bed, more fragile than I remembered. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. For the first time in my life, I didn't see hardness in her gaze, only weariness. I thought you didn't want to see us anymore. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know, I admitted. We were silent. There were no apologies, no, just a feeling that deep down we both knew there were things that couldn't be fixed. Still I stayed. Not for them, for me. Because in the end, I didn't want to carry more weight than necessary. My mother passed away a few months later. My father, without her, seemed to fade away too. I saw him once more at the funeral. We greeted each other with a slight nod, like two strangers who had once seen each other in another life. We didn't talk. There was nothing more to say. My sister went on with her life, although without my financial support, things were much more difficult for her. She recently sent me a message. I don't know if we can ever be real sisters again, but I wanted to tell you that I understand. I understand why you left. And I'm sorry about how things were. I didn't answer immediately. Maybe someday I will. But for now, all I know is that after everything, I achieved what I thought was impossible. I not only survived without them, I lived. And that for me is enough. Responding to Reddit. I never thought this post would receive so much attention. Thousands of comments, some supportive, others not so much. I'm not going to lie, I read them all. And now I want to respond. You're selfish, it's your family. I've heard this all my life. Family comes first. Family is always there. You have to help your own. But what happens when the family is the one that hurts you the most? What happens when they make you feel like you're only worthwhile if you give them something? When I decided to cut off their financial support, I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it because I realized something that broke me inside. If I stopped giving them money, I would stop mattering to them. And I confirmed it when they cut me off as if I had never been part of them. So no, I don't feel selfish. Feel free. But you came back when your mom got sick. Hypocrite. Yes, I came back. Not because I felt I owed them something. Not because I expected them to apologize. I came back because at the end of the day, I didn't want to live with the guilt of not having done it. But here's the part that maybe many don't understand. That visit didn't change anything. There was no reconciliation. There were no hugs or forgiveness. Just two people who, for the first time, had nothing more to say to each other. And that was enough for me. You're exaggerating. Nobody treats their own daughter like that. Do you really believe that? Look around you. There are thousands of people with families that squeeze them dry, parents who use their children as their retirement plan, siblings who live off the one who succeeded. I allowed it for years because they made me believe that's how it should be. I'm not the only one. If you had talked to them, this wouldn't have happened. You know what's the worst part? I tried. I tried to talk to my mom when I saw the video where they made fun of me. I tried to explain to my sister that I couldn't keep paying for her college. I tried to tell my father that his message telling me I was no longer part of the family destroyed me. And all I got was manipulation. We weren't serious. It was a joke. If you stop helping us, you're abandoning us after everything we've done for you. This is how you repay us. They didn't want to talk. They wanted to be provided for, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. Now that they're gone, do you regret it? I thought about it many times. When my mom died, when I saw my dad at the funeral, when my sister wrote to me with her attempt at reconciliation, I wondered if I had been too harsh, if I should have given in a little more, if I could have handled everything differently. But the truth is this. I did what I had to do to save myself. Because if I hadn't, I would be exactly where I was 2 years ago. Tired, feeling inadequate every time I tried to put myself first. So no, I don't regret it. And if anyone else is in the same situation I was in, I want them to know that they have the right to say enough, and that they are not alone.